Good day everybody, welcome to a Tuesday video. This one is going to go over some top picks of champions to take down paths, and as well as some options for taking on some of the bosses. Now, there will be people out there that have already done themselves a little bit of the Cavalier difficulty, maybe even smashed it. You do you at the end of the day. But this is just one of those following up things, and it's also smashing out that August content that for those that haven't done Cavalier difficulty, what to expect from the paths and also the bosses. Okay, so the main thing to point out is that you're going to have to be savvy when it comes to the grind of Cavalier difficulty, and a lot of the times of which, I'm facing is going, okay, so at least for, I think it's 3 of the times, it may not be best to use the most opportune champion to take down the enemy boss. So you'll basically be going, taking down the enemy champion to about 90% done, and in the last 10% it's going to be finished off by one of the specific types of classes. So again, to give a further example, if you're unfamiliar, is like going, okay, well, I'm going to go and defeat Penny Parker with Magneto, and that's good. That helps out for the mutant / skill of the different types of objectives. But next time you're going to have to take it down to about 5% finish off with a mystic or a science, those kind of things. But those are the unfortunate things that we've got with this month's little objectives, which isn't too bad because actually I quite like this setup. Okay, let's delve into things with the first quest. We're going to go with the boss, and also we're going to do the paths. So the main thing to point out with the paths is it's 1-2 punch. Essentially, you want to get a champion that does petrify. Well, not really petrify, but more the weakness, slow, and power sting effects. And those can really got from really good champion options. Yellow Jacket for sure is a really good option. And by doing that and by suppressing that power, you're able to get yourself the petrify. The petrify is able to get you the suppressing of the power from the enemy. It works really well if you have a champion that does weakness, power sting, or slow. You got your She-Hulks with your with your heavy attack. A lot of champions that are science do seem to throw that. Void can be good. Immortal, Abomination, Mr. Fantastic's amazing with She-Hulk because you do get that weakness debuff as part of the synergy. Cap Infinity War with science champions. Mwah! Piece de Resistance. Really, really good. But when it comes to the boss, then it's a case like it's not ridiculously bad, but essentially keep away from the enemy. I got to be honest, because combat deja vu, and I got a little bit bored with playing into this, I just decided let's just do intercepting, and that worked fine for me. If you came down to the live streams, and I will be doing this later on, it's just intercepts. I'm getting a little bit bored with the way that Kabam build their kind of monthly content, and it just seemed a little bit meh. But then that's the thing with the game at the moment, it's very meh. Close encounters, stay away, get degen, come close, get regeneration. It's a thing. And the power snack, if you're worried about getting a buff, which then affects power snack to then enemies get it, it kind of plays in the favor, because if the enemy is getting unblockable, because you have if you do the same basic attacks, they get unblockable. I just honestly got so bored with the way that this fight's put together. I just went on an intercept fest, and that just suited me down. But there are champions that interact with unblockable, Red Guardian, Mr. Sinister, if you're worried about that. And also, if you want to think about building your buffs, then Red Guardian can't have any buffs on him. That's going to be very important for a future boss encounter, which I actually really rate. So Red Guardian could be a really good option, especially because he could help you with path clearing as well to a degree. But apart from that, that's mission number 1. By the way, right up in the description down below if you wanted that as well. Let's move on to 1.2. Now yes, 1.2, this is actually one of my favourite ones, especially because I've been using some very kind of not obscure, but kind of the rotations and champion use. I like using some kind of not weird ones, but kind of out there examples. And we'll get onto Carnage and who I used in a moment. The paths in particular on this one is all about skill champions doing critical hits. Every critical hit hits a skill attack that lands. It lands, purifies a non-damaging debuff on them. Each time a skilled attacker is immune to a debuff or purifies debuff, they gain an indefinite fury passive. Now that's the one I emphasize the most. That's the most interesting one for me, and that's Fighting Fit. Especially the champions that I've been putting in here. There's 3 key champions that are absolute god tier for this, and that is Crossbones, Black Panther, and Jabari Panther. There are others. I'm not saying, not like disputing all the other ones that are out there. Mole Man can do this. You know, you've got Nick Fury is relatively good for this as well. But I just feel that based on the abilities to shrug off debuffs, which is the quickest method in order to build those Fury passives, those three just mentioned are some of the best. And I use crossbones a lot more in content than I've ever done. And Black Panther, the OG one, is actually relatively good. And Jabari Panther, of course, a great champion option for this. So that being said, there's now let's move on to the boss. The enemy boss is Carnage, which is a cosmic champion, which we all know. Whenever the defender activates a special attack, the attacker is inflicted with both a heal block and an armor break. Don't need to worry about that. When struck, the defender gains a chitin charge at 10. All charges are removed, the defender gains an armor up buff, increasing armor by 50%, lasting 30 seconds. Again, not something to worry about. Mystic conditioning. Yes, okay, that does suppress the ability to stagger, you know, fate seal, blah, 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 blah. It's not the be all and end all, and still Mystic champions that do those methods are fine to rotate around. And while a defender has an armor up buff active, they gain a 65% attack rating and become unblockable, which does play quite nastily into some of the other ones, like Hit Me, I Dare You, and Clap Back when a poison, shock, or bleed, incinerate, or plasma debuff is placed on the defender. The same debuff is placed on the attacker. So this is where the likes of Black Widow, Clairvoyant, Doctor Doom to a degree, but don't throw a special attack too. And my personal favourite, Majik, which is just the favourite. I rotated around the SP3 in order to punish those pesky buffs that come up on Carnage. And if it's for whatever reason I feel that the champion is getting too much power, I'll literally throw an SP2 and suppress it, grab more power, and rotate around the SP2. Occasionally I'd throw SP1s, but I think after that point I was just like, oh, let's just throw SP2s. The SP3 I thought was going to do more damage, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, Majik was my my kind of like go-to champion for this, but Black Widow, Clairvoyant does fine, or other champions do fine. You just got to be very careful about what debuffs are being thrown on the enemy, hence why do not throw an SP2 with Doctor Doom. Moving now on to 2.1, and this is where your mystics come into play. This is all about mystic attackers gaining permanent passive prowess, increasing their special attack each time they nullify a buff, and the enemies will get personal space, which gives them a fury buff. So it's kind of important to have stagger champions. They work relatively well, but there's a whole plethora of ones you could use to clear the paths. My favourites were using Scarlet Witch OG, a personal fan of that one, so I use that. Black Widow Clairvoyant, Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Doom, as we've got in the team right here. And then you've got Symbiote Supreme, Sasquatch. The list goes on of potential champions to use against this. And I'll probably do more of a further example of champions in the Cavalier cheat sheet for the month, which will be dropping at some point. But let's move on to the boss. The boss is going to be the delightful Dark Hawk. Dark Hawk is a hashtag metal, and for a lot of players they will choose to use that very nice Magneto. I can't really think of like a lot of better options to take on this one. Yes, there are loads of different options, but it's just kind of figuring out what is best, especially for some of the, and this is the kind of the thing about this month, everything is, and I use this kind of like word, there's a UK word that we use called finicky, but I don't know if it's used kind of like everywhere else, but it's just kind of like it's very specific, it's very kind of like stupid for the sake of no, it's very specific. But yeah, so I'll just go, it's just very specific at the end of the day, which can be kind of like really rubbish, because then Kabam just like put these sort of weird nodes on stuff, especially this month. You think with Summer of Pain, the parry bug situation, or the bad control situation, because it's not just about dex, and it's not just about like parry, it's dexterity, it's inputs and stuff like that. You kind of go like, why are they doing this? It's on this kind of month. In any case, whatever. You got to get past it at the end of the day, and that's a sad thing. We can't wait for Kabam to do something right about it. We have to like get on with it. Really sad about that, but it is what it is. Look, hard knock life and also evade based abilities. You can go against the grain and maybe you use Apocalypse for this. It's not like a guaranteed option. I said that's a good idea, but at the same time, it's like a means to an end. The only other option is, I said, like using Magneto if you've got it for hashtag metal. I'm sure people will use different options. Maybe they use class advantage stuff. You could use Captain Marvel movie for this, but do bear in mind that whenever the champion is knocked down, it will kind of like, number one, gain power. That's the first thing. But number two, also kind of like gain, just shrug off any debuff. So if you've also got something like... well, an armor break, and this is what I was thinking, like, oh, we'll use Medusa, but then like he shrugs off armor break, so that really puts a spanner in the works when trying to deal with that. Shame we don't have anything like a passive armor break or something, but passive based abilities could be relatively helpful. It's just a case of rotating around that SP1, unless you want a champion that completely avoids the miss ability, which there are a few, especially if you've got, I think it's the vigilance debuff. Vigilance buff, sorry, that's going to be something that will be relatively helpful, but I think there needs to be a few more options to take down this champion. And now we move on to 2.2. In 2.2, this is where we face off against Spider-Man 2099. It's also the time that Cosmic Champions are going to be of benefit. Essentially, 50% chance for each unique buff to gain a vigilance buff, which is going to be handy against Nowhere to hide an arrogance. So if the champion has a miss effect and it is then, I think it's either evaded or suppressed, or if it fails, then you gain yourself back a nice little indefinite fury passive. Pretty handy for champions that use a lot of, or get a lot of buffs. I've personally used, and I quite like, Venom, Odin, and Hyperion. But also there are plenty of other Cosmic Champions to use. It's not just about those. I'm going to give a few examples. Cosmic Ghost Rider, Corvus, I think. I put Corvus down there, but I'm not 100% sure on that one being like a great option. Medusa, even better if you got yourself the Inhumans Royal Family Synergy with Black Bolt. That could be great. Black Bolt with Hitmonkey. The list goes on of available options for that. But let's move on to the boss. The boss does have that wither debuff, which goes on you like regardless. Every 8 seconds, the attack is inflicted with a wither debuff, reducing ability power rate by 150% for 10 seconds. If the attacker lands a hit, the time is reset. Mighty Charge is annoying. Again, this is what we're talking about, this very specific and weird month with Kabam and what they're putting out. Enhanced power gain, enhanced parry, power gain, which is annoying. Never back down when the attacker dashes back. Again, a regeneration timer for 1.2 seconds. Dashing back again when the regeneration timer is active grants the defender a regeneration passive. And then you got Indomitable, so the defender's healing abilities can't be reversed when this occurs. Instead, they prevent from healing. I've used against this Archangel, which is a bit of an iffy one to do, but it's all about kind of how to really get shallow parries. A lot of the time with this, especially with Mighty Charge, the bigger different distance you have, the more chance they are to dash with you without unstoppable. So what I try and do is keep myself with a kind of a closer, not wider, but kind of closer kind of like gap to do the parry, which then allows me to capitalize on it. Magneto with Archangel fine first time, and then it's a case I've tried out some other options. If you're looking to get those debuffs away from you, then of course you can use champions like Black Panther, OG, Jabari Panther, Crossbones, Class Advantage, and it's really good with Crossbones into working. OG Panther, I believe, has defense ability accuracy reduction if you've got the awakened ability, and as well if you've got bleed effects on there. Either way, there could be some good interaction with it. I haven't tried it, but I'm interested. Tried Falcon. Falcon worked fun enough against this. But apart from that, Nick Fury with the intense amount of damage. Any skill-based champions that's strong with debuffs can be very, very helpful to suppress the enemy. And yeah, those are just like some top picks right there. Now, let's move on to 3.1. 3.1 has Rogue as the final boss. And I've actually got like a really decent option to take down this enemy. But healing factor is the path clearing. So any champion that is a mutant-based champion, there's 30% chance to gain a passive regeneration healing based by blah 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 blah. 10 seconds. The chance is increased by 70% if the attacker has a prowess buff or passive. The mutant attacker can gain an indefinite passive fury, increasing attack rating every time they gain a regeneration buff. So essentially, you want to get a prowess buff on. There are some really cool options. It's not just about these. You've got Storm Pyramid X, you've got Emma Frost, you've got Bishop, you've got Professor X, you've got Apocalypse. some really solid options there. I was playing around with Rogue, even though it doesn't really have like a prowess, but like I really enjoy like using certain champions. But there's a whole plethora of champions to take down this. I don't think it has to be so much. Like there, you can go the other way with the various different types of mutants. But yeah, those ones mentioned are relatively good. And now going up against the boss. So the boss for this is going to be Rogue. Right, and Rogue isn't actually that bad. I say that loosely. There's one champion I really like for this. As again, I'll explain him. I mean, you've just probably seen him. This is the problem. Rising Sun. When a defender is struck, the attacker gains a Fury buff, granting 2.5% attack rating for 25 seconds. Once the attacker has 10 Fury buffs, any additional ones will inflict them with a stacking passive degen, dealing 12% of the defender's attack over 4 seconds. Now, you can go down the route of using Namor for this. Namor could be cool, especially if you're going to play into the Rising Sun narrative and reflecting that back. You can use champions that interact with that, like Spider-Ham, who's the other one that does it relatively well? I'm going to say it's any champion that shrug off debuff effects, but I think it's Angela. I want to say High Signature could do that. But there's also some other stuff. Heavy attacks are not interrupted, bubble shield, roll with the punches. And yeah, so there's two ways you can do it. You can play into the narrative of building those Fury buffs and doing some reflective damage or not. But also, you could go down the route of something that I really enjoyed. And also Hyperion could be an option depending if you want to do like parry heavy or whatever and throw them off. But I actually use Red Guardian. Red Guardian doesn't get any buffs on him, so therefore plays into Rising Sun very nicely. And I just think that he could be a really cool option. I've used him. I've done one shot. I made one big mistake and then like did the rest of the fight fine. It was fine as well to kind of like just hit into the champion, do some intercepting, build it up to special attacks, SP1 and SP2. Relatively easy to avoid for Rogue, so just keep your distance and go back in again. But yeah, lots of options. As I said, information in the description about the various champions you could use. Now on to the final quest. This one has Penny Parker at the end of it. To begin with, this is all about champions that are tech, but also do shock. And that's really the big thing. You do shock, you then hit the enemy, it's then good. You do specials, you get yourself the Fury passive. That's how it works. There are a lot of champions that could be good options, but I personally like Hulkbuster with a heavy attack. I like Warlock, especially when you get shot from him. Man Infinity War is a solid champion based on shocks, but I think one of the best ones, which is a little bit kind of like goes under the radar, is Guardian, which is a tech champion, with Sasquatch in as a synergy. Wild time blocks with Guardian and having Sasquatch in could be good because they give that shock and also build relatively nicely, especially into this. I don't personally have a Guardian above 4-star, and that sucks because I really would like to get 5-star version, awaken it, and use it in situations like this, as well as various other bits of content. It's just nice to have the interaction. So, what goes on with the boss? Penny Parker, a little bit annoying because of auto block that she gets. And that's just the thing. Having auto block can be very, very frustrating. And let's face it, because she's a hashtag metal, Magneto is the solid option for this. But you can also go and interact with things. Because the champion has auto block, yes, but also has that power burning. It's important to have champions that interact with that. So you've got Terex, that's very good against the power burn immunity. King Groot, I think Unawakened, Venom Pool is a great option for this. There's also Super Scroll after 4 Furies. Human Torch I've used. I think that's alright. But the likes of Nick Fury is great. Corvus is pretty good for this. And that can be really good as well. Like parry and then do like the kind of like hitting with the damage and the stun vulnerability. If you've got Suicide Masteries on with Corvus, I'm sure you'll be able to slay it in a very short space of time. But yeah, Penny Parker is a little bit annoying. Keep her to SP1 for the love of Jeebus. Please do that. I've made too many mistakes pushing her too further with that. So I think it's SP1 rotation, especially because you can get back. But at times I have found with the parry dex control issues that some things are very unresponsive. But that's just the state of the game at the moment. But anyway, that has been my little grind into the Cavalier difficulty champions that I've used, but also players have used as well from the community, which is good to like put it into one place. As I said, the write-up is in the description down below for anybody that's interested and about to start. If you've done this already and you know which champions you're going to use, hey, thumbs up. But as well, as I said, like there's some really good recommendations. Red Guardian against that Rogue fight. Magneto, hashtag metal, of course, but also like, you know, various other options, Jabari Panther, crossbones in different scenarios. There's a whole plethora. Majik against Carnage. You know, there are some really kind of like gems here to consider to take on the content. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button, and I'll see you later on for doing this live on stream. But also make sure to check out some other content I've posted on screen right now. It could be some previous stuff, as well as working towards some other things as well. Appreciate you. Much love. Bye bye for now.